Hi, I got an interesting question. Somebody wanted to know what are the 5 practical things I had to learn or adjust to when I moved to the US, and what are the 5 personal realizations I had when I started moving to living in the US. I tried to interpret that question as best as I can, but the message was pretty short, but I thought it was very interesting. So I'll do this in 2 parts. First, let's do the practical things first. I'm guessing that these are like the um, practical things, like technical things about living in the US that I had to learn. Number one is credit score. I don't think I've even heard of it before I actually started living in the US. Credit score basically measures how good you are at borrowing money and how good you are at paying them back. So when you pay on time, the more establishments or things that you borrow and then pay on time, then the higher your score goes. Basically, here people don't really use a lot of cash. There's very few purchases that they would use cash for. Usually they would use credit card, and so for small purchases, and then so the concept is that the higher your credit score is, then the lower the interest they will give you when you borrow money to do things like to purchase something from your credit card or whatever. For credit card companies, they usually have a standard amount for their interest. But for other purchases like cars or homes, then the credit score the interest rate that they will give you depends on your credit score as well. So the higher your credit score is, then the better it will be your interest rates. The better your interest rates will be when you purchase something, a big ticket item. So you have to start. I had to start from the bottom. So in the beginning, because I was new, I didn't have any credit history. It was so hard for banks or for anybody to actually give me a credit card. So I had to. I think there's this program in Bank of America. It's called this. I don't quite remember the name, but it was something like a special credit card where it works almost like a debit card. You need to deposit the money, and then you can't spend beyond the money that you deposited. Then if you're good at paying them, if you're good at replenishing that cash inside your credit card, special credit card, then eventually you can ask that it be converted into an actual credit card where you don't have to deposit money before you spend them. So that's one. And then I think Capital One finally gave me a credit card, but like the interest rate was like 27% or something. It was crazy. So, but for as long as you pay on time, and in full, then you don't suffer the 27% or 25%. I don't quite remember interest rate. And then as things, as time goes by, then I've sort of established a track record, and my credit score started going up. Then I started getting better offers for credit cards. So that's one, credit score. And then eventually I want to buy a house. Of course, I'm building towards the credit score that I really, really want to get into, so that I know I can get a better deal when I finally buy a house. Okay, next is that you can't ask a lot of things about people. Like you can't ask their age, you can't ask their gender, you can't ask their civil status. So how do you when in the Philippines, you know how people will actually put their photo in their resume. In here, you're not required to. You can if you want, but you're actually not required to, and they can't ask it from you. So especially now when they do interviews, it's usually phone interview. They don't even know how you look like. And then when you go for a personal interview, for example, they can't ask you the things that I've said. They can't ask you your age. They can't ask you your civil status. Anything. They can't ask things that would clearly track your age or your civil status, and you're not required to disclose any of those things. Once you get hired, of course, then some of the things about you will be revealed, like your birthday, because you need to provide your identification and the social security and stuff like that. But it is not to be disclosed to the entire company, just amongst people or the department that needs to know. Okay, so that was quite odd for me as you know, Asians actually, we look younger than our age. And so when I started applying for jobs, that was one of the feedback that I got, that a lot of people, a lot of the employers felt like, oh, you're too young. Do you think you can handle such a responsibility? And I'm like, I'm not young. In the Philippines, I'm actually, I need to be archived by now. It was kind of odd. It was a little surreal for me. I did not expect that. Okay, next is healthcare. So, and I do understand that there's a lot of people who actually want to move to the US because of healthcare, because they do have a good, healthcare. Not the best, but better, certainly better than what we have in the Philippines. But it's not free. It's not free. So you still need, I have, there's certain healthcare companies like Blue Shield, Blue Anthem, Kaiser, HealthNet, LA Care, and a whole lot of others. So you need to pay monthly for your insurance, for your health insurance. But unlike in the Philippines, they can't exclude your pre-existing. So if you have a pre-existing condition, if you've had a surgery, or if you had cancer in the past, as soon as they can't say no to you. They can't give you a higher premium, but they can't say no to you. Next is that everything is really covered. In the Philippines, they cover like 30%, 70%, or whatever. Here, everything is covered. There are certain technicalities, like there's a copay, there's a whatever. So copay is, so once for example, I had my gallbladder removed. I battled my doctor for like almost 7 years for me to keep my gallbladder, but finally I just had to remove it. So when I went to the ER to get that checked, I did pay like $20, and that's my copay. That's my share basically of that. Yeah, that's my share basically on for having to go to, I don't know why that but anyway, it's $25, so it's not a whole lot. So that was the only thing that I paid for. For the meds, I had to pay like $3, and then the rest is my bill was like, I don't know, it was a surgery, so I'm guessing it's like 20,000 or something dollars, $20,000, and I didn't pay anything. I didn't pay a dime, and so that all of those things, and that's a huge deal. That's a huge thing. And I actually went to one of the most expensive hospitals here in LA, just because that was the one closest to me. But then the other thing is that they can't say no to you, even if you don't have insurance, even if you can't pay for your bill. They can't not discharge you, and they can't not accept you. They have to accept you. Once you go in there, they ask for your health insurance, and you say no. They can't say no to you. They have to take you in. It is illegal for them to turn you away, and that's something that I know happens in the Philippines. They actually turn patients away. You can't do that here. They're gonna get sued, and you're gonna end up a millionaire basically. So they just need to take you in. They have to find a way to take you in. Now, if it's time comes for you to get discharged and you don't have, you can't pay it, they still need to discharge you. You do have an outstanding balance, and that's going to earn interest, and then eventually you need to pay that. When you do get the funds to pay it, you need to pay that. But they can't not discharge you, and they can't not accept you if you do go to their hospital or their ER or their urgent care. So urgent care was another concept that I actually didn't know about. Urgent care is something like a clinic in the Philippines, but you can just go there. Basically, if it's not life and death, you don't have to go to the emergency. You can just go to a clinic, which is the urgent care, which is urgent care basically. So for urgent care, they don't actually admit people. They don't. So if you actually do need to get admitted, they refer you to a hospital. But they deal with things that are not life and death, but needs to be. But they deal with conditions that are not life and death, but still need to be dealt with. Okay. All right. Next is traffic. I hear a lot of complaints from Americans, from people that were born and raised here about how bad the traffic is in LA. And bad is not bad for them. They're so exaggerated. I think they're just so um, spoiled about the system, how great and how efficient their system is, that any inflection in their comfort is a source of complaint for them. Traffic is not, it's never that bad here. I have never, there were very, very few times when I had to go on a full stop in the freeway. And usually that's very temporary. Accidents would usually cause that, but it's temporary. Eventually it gets better. They're pretty good at responding to all of those things. And even their 0 hour is actually just a 0 hour. Like if 6 to 7 or 5:30 to 6:30 would usually be the time when traffic is really bad. You leave the office at 7, traffic is good. So it's the 0 hour is really 0 hour. In the Philippines, our 0 hour is actually from 1 a.m. all the way until 12 noon or 12 midnight. So the entire day, 24/7. But it's not that bad here. Even for 2 years I didn't have a car. I just took public transportation, and it wasn't even that bad. I had to go to work from here to the valley, from LA to the valley. I was living in LA, and my work was in the valley, and I had to travel for like an hour 10 or an hour 20 every day, one way. And everyone felt so bad for me. They were like, oh, I feel so bad for you. You spend so much time in traffic. And I'm like, that's less than what I was spending on commuting to and from work when I was still in the Philippines. So that wasn't so bad. So yeah, when you hear people talking about traffic and whatever, it's not as bad as traffic in Manila or Bangkok. If you've ever been to Bangkok, it's not that bad. All right. And last is that people are very, very polite here. They're much, much more polite, but they're very distant. They're very closed off. So you hear a lot of people saying good morning, how are you, but they're not really interested in the answer. They don't really know how you are. They're just trying to be polite. And so I had to in the Philippines, we don't really greet strangers because of you might be misinterpreted, or that might be a criminal or whatever. But here they just greet everybody, even people they don't know. And they asked all of those things like how are you doing or whatever, but they're not really interested in the answer. They're just being polite. So that's another thing I had to get used to, because I'm not used to saying hello or striking conversations with strangers. But then I had to learn that here, because a lot of people would just, like, if I'm waiting in line or something, the person from behind me can just strike a conversation, and that doesn't really mean anything. They're just trying to be polite, striking a conversation. So those are 5 practical things. I hope you enjoyed them. Hope you learned something. And if ever you are moving here, say hi to me, and good luck.